cked out of my own childhood home to make room for my stepfather's daughter. Now I know family doesn't always mean loyalty. I'm 25, male, and up until a few weeks ago, I lived in my childhood home. My dad died when I was young, so it had been just me and my mom for most of my life. I went to college locally, saved money by staying at home, and we had a good system going. Then, about 2 years ago, my mom remarried. A guy, we'll call her. I won't lie, I wasn't thrilled about it at first, but it wasn't my call and I figured, if my mom was happy, I could deal with it. Or wasn't a bad guy, or at least I didn't think so at first. He kept to himself, didn't bother me much, and was pretty hands-off about most things. We had an unspoken understanding. I paid rent for my old room, helped around the house, and he didn't try to play dad. Things were fine, uneventful even. That was until his daughter, Kay, entered the picture. I knew about her. She's in her late 20s, never really got her life together. She'd been in and out of jobs, and from what her told my mom, Kay had been struggling for a while. But I didn't think much of it. She lived in another state, and we weren't exactly close. Then one day out of nowhere, she moves in. I got home from work one evening, expecting the usual, maybe watch TV, make some food. Instead, I walk in and see boxes everywhere. Like a ridiculous amount of boxes, cluttering up the living room and kitchen. I stood there, confused as hell, until Kay came out of the guest room, her new room, I guess, wearing sweats and acting like she'd been living there forever. "Oh hey," she said, casual as could be. "Dad said I could move in for a bit. Hope that's cool." Hope that's cool? What the hell? I tried to stay calm. I mean, I didn't want to blow up right there. I figured maybe this was temporary, some sort of short-term thing until she got back on her feet. I went to find my mom, who was in the backyard watering her plants. Acting like nothing was weird at all. "Hey, Kay's stuff is in the living room?" I asked, trying to sound as neutral as possible. "Oh, yeah," my mom said, smiling like this was all normal. She needed a place to stay for a while. Or thought it'd be good for her to be with family. I felt my stomach tighten. A while? Like how long? Mom shrugged, still avoiding my eyes. "I don't know yet. It's not a big deal, right? It's just family." It wasn't just family. It was someone I barely knew. Someone I hadn't even been consulted about. This was still my home, too, wasn't it? I paid rent. I contributed. But apparently, none of that mattered. I was pissed, but I bit my tongue. I figured maybe if I waited it out, Kay would leave. I didn't want to rock the boat. But days turned into weeks, and Kay made herself more than comfortable. She started leaving her crap everywhere. Kitchen counters, bathroom sinks, even my living room spots. She'd blast music late at night, and take long showers that left no hot water for anyone else. It was like she assumed the place was hers now, and no one seemed to care. I tried to talk to my mom about it again, but she just brushed it off. "Kay's going through a tough time," she'd say. "We need to support her." Support her? I was the one trying to hold down a job and keep things together. I couldn't even relax in my own house anymore. I was the one paying rent to live in a place that now felt like someone else's territory. But whatever. I kept my head down, stayed out of her way, and tried to manage. That was until the day I came home and found my bags packed by the front door. It had been a long shift at work. I was exhausted, ready to crash. But when I opened the door, I saw 2 suitcases. My suitcases, sitting right in the hallway, next to the staircase. I froze, confused at first, before I noticed that most of my stuff had been moved out of my room. My clothes were in the bags, my computer was boxed up, even the pictures I had on my dresser were stacked on top of my suitcase. I walked straight to my room, only to find the door half open, and Kay was inside, moving her things in. My bed was stripped bare, her clothes already filling the closet. She glanced at me, completely unfazed, like this was just another day for her. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice tight with disbelief. She shrugged, barely looking up. "Dad said you'd be cool with it. I needed more space, so here we are." I felt a wave of heat crawl up my neck. "You needed more space?" I spat, my voice louder now. "This is my room. What the hell are you talking about?" Kay didn't flinch. "Dad said I could have it. You were taking up too much room anyway." I was shaking, anger and disbelief, mixing into a nauseating cocktail in my stomach. I stormed downstairs, looking for my mom, looking for anyone to explain what the hell was going on. I found her first, sitting at the kitchen table with a beer, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. "Why is my stuff packed up?" I demanded, not even trying to hide my anger anymore. He didn't even bother looking at me, just took a slow sip of his drink before saying, "Kay needed the room. It's bigger. You'll figure something else out." Figure something else out? I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. This is my home. You don't get to just. It's my house now, he interrupted, his tone flat but firm. I'm the one paying the mortgage, and I decide who stays where. You're an adult. It's time you figured out your own place. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process what he just said. You're kicking me out? I'm giving you the opportunity to move on, he replied, smugness creeping into his voice. You should be grateful. Grateful for being thrown out of my own home without a single conversation? I felt my chest tighten, my fists clenching at my sides. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I turned to my mom, who had come into the room by then, standing quietly by the doorway. Mom, are you seriously okay with this? He's kicking me out. Your son. Her eyes darted between me and for a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd side with me. But then she sighed, lowering her gaze to the floor. Sweetheart, R's right. You're an adult now. It's time for you to find your own place. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own place? This is my place. This is where I grew up, and now you're just siding with him? She didn't say anything, just stood there, avoiding my eyes, looking ashamed but still unwilling to stand up to him. The betrayal hit me hard, sharper than anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't just her kicking me out. It was her too. She was letting this happen. I didn't say another word. There was no point. I grabbed my bags, loaded them into my car, and drove off without even knowing where I was going. I ended up crashing at a friend's place that night, trying to process everything that had just happened. The next few days were a blur. I barely slept. All I could think about was how my own mother, the person I'd always trusted, had chosen R&K over me. The man she'd married 2 years ago had more say in the house than I did. I'd never felt so disposable in my life. And Kay? She got exactly what she wanted. My room, my space, my life. I heard from mutual friends that she was settled in, not even caring about the mess she'd left behind. No one in that house seemed to care that I was gone. I thought about confronting them again, storming back into that house and demanding my space back, or at least an explanation. But what would be the point? They'd already made it clear where I stood. I was out, and R had won. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed closure. So, a few days later, I called my mom. It was the first time we'd spoken since I left. The conversation was awkward at first. Small talk, like neither of us wanted to acknowledge the elephant in the room. But eventually, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Why did you let him do it, Mom? I asked, my voice quiet but full of the hurt I'd been holding in. Why did you let him kick me out? There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, could almost picture her biting her lip the way she does when she's nervous. I thought it was best for everyone, she finally said, her voice shaky. You're old enough to make it on your own. And Kay, she needed help. I thought it would be good for you to start fresh. Start fresh? That was the excuse? I wanted to scream, to tell her how abandoned I felt, how she'd chosen a man and his daughter over her own son. But all that came out was a bitter laugh, like I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Good for me? I said, my voice cold now. You think throwing me out of my own home without even asking me is good for me? Her silence on the other end felt like a confirmation of everything I feared. She didn't know what to say, because there was no good reason. She hadn't fought for me. She'd let her decide, and I was just collateral damage. I didn't want it to be like this, she finally whispered, almost pleading with me to understand. R said you'd be fine, that you'd land on your feet. R said? I cut her off, my anger flaring up again. Mom, do you even hear yourself? Since when does he get to decide anything for me? I'm your son, or does that not matter anymore? There was another heavy pause. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the weight of years of trust and love crumbling under the weight of this betrayal. When she spoke again, her voice was weak. I don't know what to say, she admitted, sounding more like a stranger than my mother. I just wanted everyone to be happy. I scoffed, unable to hold back. Well, congratulations, Mom. Looks like R and K are pretty damn happy. But what about me? Did you even think about me, or was I just an inconvenience? I didn't want it to be this way, she repeated, but it felt hollow now, like she was clinging to some excuse that made her feel better about what she'd done. I realized then that I wasn't going to get the apology I needed. She wasn't going to stand up for me because she already made her choice. I hung up. For the next few days, I stayed at my friend's place, going through the motions. Work, sleep, eat, repeat. But the hurt didn't go away. It just sat there, festering under the surface, while the reality of what had happened sank in deeper. My own mother had abandoned me, and for what? To please a man she'd known for 2 years? To give his daughter a place that wasn't hers? The worst part? The house wasn't even ours. It was the house my dad had bought. The house I'd grown up in, filled with memories of a time before things got complicated, before my dad died, and before I came in and took over like he owned the place. And now, my room, my life, was being treated like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I thought about going back. I thought about showing up one day and demanding they explain themselves to my face. But what would that accomplish? R would just throw his weight around again, K would smirk from my old bedroom, and my mom would stand there, silent, torn between the family she was supposed to protect and the one she chose. But then, something happened that I didn't expect. I got a text from R. It was short, blunt, and full of the same arrogance he'd always had. Hope you're doing well. You can come get the rest of your stuff when you're ready. No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just a cold invitation to pick up the last pieces of my life. I almost didn't reply. I almost blocked his number and moved on with my life. But something about that message made me snap. It was the final straw. I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to let him keep what little control he thought he had. I drove back to the house the next weekend, unannounced. The same house I grew up in now felt foreign, like I was walking into enemy territory. My heart pounded as I parked in driveway, the place I used to call home, now looking like a stranger's. I walked in through the front door, because honestly, what were they going to do? Call the cops on me for stepping into my own house? Kay was lounging on the couch, her feet propped up on the coffee table, her phone in hand. She barely glanced up when I walked in, but when she saw it was me, she rolled her eyes and muttered, "Oh great." I didn't respond. I didn't care what she had to say. I went straight to what used to be my room. The door was half closed, but as I pushed it open, I felt this wave of emotions crash over me. All my stuff, everything that had once filled this space was now shoved into a corner. My bed had been replaced with hers. My posters, my shelves, my old desk, they were gone. And in their place was her life, her mess, her intrusion. I started packing up the rest of my things in silence. Kay didn't bother helping, of course. Why would she? It was clear she had already claimed victory. I was nowhere to be seen. And my mom? Well, I didn't even know if she was home, but she certainly wasn't making an appearance. As I loaded the last box into my car, I stood there for a moment, staring at the house. It hit me then, this wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Maybe I had been holding on to something that no longer existed, hoping for a version of my family that was already gone. But standing there, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt either. I was done. Done with art, done with Kay. And for now, done with my mom. I drove off without looking back, knowing that I was finally free. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the one I needed. A clean break. I'd figure out the rest on my own. Since then, I've been staying with friends, saving up for my own place. It's not easy. Starting over never is. But it's better than staying where I wasn't wanted. I've cut off contact with R and K entirely. And as for my mom? I don't know yet. Part of me wants to forgive her, to understand why she made the choices she did. But part of me knows that sometimes, even family can hurt you in ways that take a long time to heal from. If there's anything I've learned from this whole mess, it's that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. And sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who let you down the hardest.